The state's attitude about today is we feel really good about the beginning of the case. We felt like in a very illustrative and compelling way during our opening, we established for the judge that there's a big picture here, that Johnson & Johnson Janssen is in this up to their neck, this being a collaborative effort on the part of the industry being those who sold, marketed, and misrepresented opioid analgesics. So they provided product for the rest of the industry. They collaborated with the industry. And the idea that they can segregate these two products and suggest to the court that they should only be held accountable for their activity around these two products is simply nonsense. So as much as they want to obfuscate, inveigle, and deceive, we're going to stick to the big picture. We're going to stick to the facts here. This case is not about lapel pins. It's about the damages that the state is going to have to deal with going into the future. So this is not a case about the past, it's a case about the future. It's a case about abating an epidemic. In our judgment, it's the worst man-made public health crisis in the history of the country, and that certainly applies to Oklahoma. So we feel good about our case. Again, we're confident the judge is not going to be distracted by looking at this in the micro. The judge is going to be focused on the big picture here, and we're looking forward to the next several weeks completing our case, getting this case decided, and getting relief to the people of the state. I'm happy to answer questions.
Mr. General, our settlement
Question over here and then here.
Yes, sir. Do you know why that Johnson & Johnson decided to go ahead and fight this instead of settling like the others?
Well, I don't build a window into my defendant's souls.
How about
Yes.
Are settlement talks continuing? Is it possible that this trial could end at any point?
Well, I've quoted one of my favorite presidents recently, frequently. John F. Kennedy said, "Never negotiate out of fear, but never fear to negotiate." But for the time being, there are no settlement talks ongoing.
Do you feel the acute
Question here and then over here.
Do you feel the pressure? There are something like 2,000 other cases going on throughout this country that could potentially be affected by what the outcome of this case. What pressure is that for you and your team?
It's not any pressure as far as I'm concerned. So my concern is the 4 million people in this state, my clients. My concern is the extent to which we've got to start addressing this epidemic in a decisive, comprehensive way. That's what this case is about. I'm happy to collaborate with other attorney generals around the country, and I've done that in the past. But for the next several weeks, I'm focused on Oklahomans. Question over here.
Can the law bring Big Pharma to account?
I'm sorry, you'll have to speak up.
Can the law bring Big Pharma to account?
So this case is about Johnson & Johnson and Janssen. It's not about Big Pharma. So we're very focused on the activity of this individual defendant. And this individual's defendant, its participation and collaboration with other opioid manufacturers for the last couple of decades. Other questions?
General, with Johnson & Johnson now being the only defendant in this with Janssen, do you have an updated timeline? I know you said this could take a few weeks, but do you have an actual timeline of when this could be over?
You're asking about the duration of the trial?
Correct. You just said a couple of weeks. I just didn't know if there was like a...
Well, I think that we've contemplated somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks with Teva out of the case, maybe shorter, but we're planning on being here through the summer. A couple more questions and I'll let you get your stories out.
What can you just sort of? I know you said this in your opening statements, but kind of a little concisely, if you will. Explain to us what you think Johnson & Johnson and Janssen did that's so egregious and violated the citizens of Oklahoma.
So you can't separate the conduct of these companies and view it as indivisible or view it in any way as something that is distinct from the other participants. There was clearly, and our case will show, the evidence will show, that there was inter-corporate collaboration with regard to the provision of product. That was in our opening statement, and they made no effort to refute that today. There was inter-corporate collaboration with regard to how drugs were promoted, how they were marketed. All that is part of our case. And again, the idea that you can focus on 2 drugs that Johnson & Johnson Janssen marketed and sold and ignore the rest of the picture is maybe the only approach that they can take with regard to their liability. But again, we're going to keep the judge focused on the big picture, and that's where you have to continue to look at this case. You can't, again, subtract. You can't take any of these participants away from the big picture and take the position that they weren't all involved. Our evidence is going to show clearly and irrefutably that these companies worked together and that Johnson & Johnson was in it up to their neck. One more question.
Can you tell us anything about the settlement offers that have been made, whether they're similar to the settlements that have been struck so far?
So I'm proscribed by a court order from discussing any settlement talks until they've been completed. So thank you all very much. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.